Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Craig Wicks. I'm in the AWS Partner Network and also involved in a program called SaaS Factory. This is Merve Soner. She'll be with me today as well too. The session for today is called Benchmarking Your SaaS Business on AWS. And so hopefully we're going to provide a lot of examples and learnings here for everyone sort of to get and take away from the session. Before I get too far into it, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the evolution of this session. So we've been around as a program, SaaS Factory, for about 6 years, maybe close to 7 in some aspects. And the conversations have shifted dramatically in that 6 or 7 years. And people that have been in the SaaS business probably can understand this. And so 6 or 7 years ago, we were often talking about why SaaS? Why should we do this? What's the benefit to our organization? What's the benefit to customers? And there's a lot of hesitancy. Certainly there were a lot of horizontal applications in SaaS, if you look at infrastructure and areas that were really moving already. But a lot of companies, that was the tough conversation we were having with them. Fast forward now, all businesses are on some path here that we're working with. I know there's some parts of segments of certain software businesses and others that are building SaaS, but the range of SaaS we see building now from industry, even enterprises now that have software businesses is just incredible. So what we wanted to bring you today is really about benchmarking your business. How do I go from good to great SaaS? How do I learn from others on AWS that are really doing it right? And so that's really the focus of our session today. So really designed for business and product leaders that are on some part of this evolution, right, of building a SaaS business and scaling it on AWS. What we won't cover in this session. This is very much a business session. So these PEX sessions, partner-oriented sessions, some are more business-oriented, some are very technically oriented. This is about an L200 kind of level. If you're looking for technical content around control plane or multi-tenancy or tenant isolation, there's a ton of good content out there from our team and from others, but it won't be in this session. But really we have 2 objectives today. One is to really land on sort of what are some really good best practices and benchmarks we see out there from others that are in the SaaS space that we've worked with, that have been through APN programs. And also help you think about sort of how does the AWS Partner Network play a role in that in supporting your business. So with that, I'll get started and get to the agenda here. Just real simple, I want to cover a little bit of the state of SaaS today. I think everyone probably has a different point of view or perspective on this, and it's certainly been a turbulent time that we'll want to talk about a little bit. Next, I want to dive in a little bit about what does your journey on AWS look like as a SaaS business or someone's building a SaaS business or SaaS products. Merve will come on next, and she'll go through some examples from partners that we think are really getting it right in terms of taking advantage of our programs and have good momentum. And then I'll talk about some resources available today, both programs and resources you can take advantage of. I also have a little bit of announcement today. There's a program that or a digital property that our team just launched, and I want to make everyone aware of as well today. Well, good. With that, I'll get started. This has certainly been a tough 2, 3, 4 years. I think there's been ups and downs in the SaaS businesses for many. The pandemic presented an opportunity. It went from and to wow, this is great, to in the last couple of years to really again. And I think things are on their way up again from what we see from our perspective. But it's been a really turbulent time as a SaaS business. And I've been around this business for probably 20 plus years. Dates me a little bit. But I can't remember a time period where there's so much activity and it was so dynamic and so many different things were going on. So I wanted to walk through a few observations that we had and just from the market overall. First of all, I know for many organizations that are building or thinking about building a SaaS business, raising capital from a venture capital perspective or thinking about IPO is something you're thinking about, hopefully. But that has really been not on the table for the last 18 to 24 months until very recently. Like Klaviyo they provide solutions in the marketing space and built on AWS, and they were one of the first IPOs in long time. And there is some signs that there's others coming in the next year. And I know everybody in this group and hearing this presentation may not be in the place of raising capital, but it's a really positive indicator overall from a SaaS market perspective. Next, from an end customer demand, we continue to see really strong demand for SaaS across all sectors. And so this is data from IDC in terms of showing that SaaS market growing at 19.6%, representing $342 billion, and about 62% of the cloud market. So it's really a huge part of that cloud market overall. And really seeing, even in some sectors, I met with a company just yesterday in the financial services and banking sector, and it's serving kind of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 banks. And that was not a place that SaaS was talked about a few years ago. And they're really seeing a strong demand from customers now in terms of demanding SaaS, and their RFPs and RFIs are there. We're also seeing just expansion of use cases in industry. So, I think SaaS really started out as very horizontal, but what we see now is really deep industry applications are moving to SaaS, whether they be incumbents or sort of new companies as well. Areas like healthcare, right, where there's a lot of companies now focused on healthcare analytics and sort of telehealth and other areas. One that our team's seen most recently is around automotive. That whole sector seems like it's ripe to kind of embrace SaaS finally. And certainly you couldn't talk about sort of what's happening at SaaS without talking about Gen AI. I know you heard a lot about Gen AI this week from AWS. We certainly see at least two places in SaaS where it's becoming really relevant. Those that are delivering services to end customers, but also those that are maybe taking advantage of Gen AI capabilities to become more operationally efficient or better serve customers in their operations. And so an example that Adam pointed out I thought was really relevant in his presentation was talking about Delta Airlines and how they revamped customer service around some of the Gen AI solutions there. And really relevant for SaaS providers if you think about sort of customer success and the function that's there. So really interesting market right now. I could spend a lot of time talking about this, but I'll maybe leave it there for now. But certainly I think there's a lot of reasons to think things are really positive in 2024 and moving forward. So with this theme of benchmarks, I wanted to kind of hit on, I think, which is maybe the ultimate SaaS benchmark. How many are aware of the Rule of 40 or have some inclination of that? How many kind of use it in their business as a way to measure your business? Anybody? Yeah, cool. So I'm going to kind of walk through it a little bit, maybe for those that haven't, and then talk to you about how I think it's changing in some recent data that we see. So just quickly, the Rule of 40 is a combination of your growth and profit as a percentage. And the idea is that number should be 40 or greater, right? And there's a lot of, I would say, controversy. I don't know if there's a lot of discussion around it, but whether that is even makes sense or that's relevant. But if you can look across a number of organizations, I put a few here that are actually, I think, higher than 40 already. Adobe, Salesforce, Qualys, where that growth and profit number was greater than 40. If it's greater than 40, that really indicates that it's a viable, healthy SaaS business, right? With the right combination of growth and profit to be successful for the long term. But one of the things that has happened more recently is how people view growth and profit and how it relates to valuation. And so Merve and I had a chance to attend the SaaStr conference. Everybody been to the SaaStr conference before? It's kind of like the business version of reInvent and SaaS, and very focused on venture capital and startups. But there was an interesting presentation from Bessemer Venture Partners that puts out a State of Cloud report each year. I invite everyone to kind of go look at it. It's pretty good and free, of course. But one of the things they noticed was how this growth and profit thing had changed relative to valuation of companies. And so in 2021, a 1% improvement in growth was equivalent to a 6% improvement in margin. So if you're looking at companies that are raising money and capital and those that were at their valuation, it was driven really primarily by growth. It was really growth at all costs in 2021, right? Fast forward sort of 2 years, that is now really flipped in terms of 1% improvement in growth is really equivalent to a 2% improvement in margin, right? So really fascinating to look at how the market now values that, call it profitable growth sort of metric. And I think we've heard from numerous partners that we work with from our program in terms of how they're focused on cost this year, and that's been a focus of a lot of content and what we've developed as a team. But really interesting to look at that. To go a little further on the Rule of 40, I wanted to kind of play out an example. I forget who this was, but it's definitely a real example here. But this is really a healthy, very healthy SaaS business. But a lot of people now are taking this Rule of 40 and applying a factor to it. Does anybody do this at all? Anybody? There's a Rule of 40, where depending on the stage you are in a company, you may want to apply some kind of a factor or multiplier or a discount to growth or profit, right? So in the same example, I've applied 1.33 times growth, 0.67 times profit, and that equals 43. So it's something that, I think you'd work with those that are investing in your business, venture capital companies and others that are investing to really understand what that looks like, or your business leaders. But I thought that was an interesting thing to kind of sort of geek out on a little bit in terms of the Rule of 40. Lots written on it. I'm just kind of covering it at a very high level. But I think the overall point here on the Rule of 40 is just the value now that those that are supporting the SaaS sort of ecosystem and businesses are putting on profit versus growth, and how that's shifted in 2 years. Now, you might say there's an overcorrection and things will come back a little bit, but it's not going to come back to 2021, I don't think, in terms of where that's at. The next thing I want to talk about a little bit is how those that are building businesses on AWS from a product level, sort of how that lands and how it supports your overall journey and supports your business strategy. And this is some perspective that our team put together over the last year, and I've shared this many times, but it's really fascinating to walk through. And one of the things we looked at is, it kind of starts the same in terms of this transformation and getting leadership alignment. But how you may land from a product perspective on AWS may look vastly different depending on what your business is and all sorts of other factors I'll get into. But I wanted to kind of lay these out and look at sort of growth versus retention strategies. And the first ones we see that's pretty common is migrate and modernize. You've got some existing on-premises application. You want to bring that to the cloud and bring that to a SaaS model. And you're going to build additional business functions around that, whether it be realignment of your sales teams, customer success, operations now all become a part of that. But that's a real common one we see. But there's others, right? The same company I was talking to the other day about the banks, one of the ways they thought they were really going to break into SaaS is to build an SaaS application around regulation and compliance. And so they're going to serve their existing customers, but do it in a complementary manner as well too. And so these ones would be more focused on growth, right? But there's others, right? It just keeps going. This is the busy slide. But at the bottom, you may choose to look at a certain set of customers and lift and shift that application to a managed services model, right? And so why might you do this? Well, you might do this in areas where there's a lot of concern about compliance. It's highly customized. This is also the business that many system integrators, those large consulting companies get into the business of managed services as well too. And that's a strategy that I see a number of companies follow too. Certainly you could continue, in this sort of on-premises world as well too. And you can think about chutes and ladders that you might want to move customers to in those different sort of lanes along the way. And we even have programs within AWS Partner Network to help support you there. So an example that we'll share a little bit more later is something called the Workload Migration Program. And so that's really focused on those that have built a SaaS solution and have a set of customers on-premise and are on-premises, and they're moving those customers to the SaaS solution with a series of incentives and best practices and guidance to get them there, right? And so we see many companies that are, coexisting all these models at the same time, but finding ways to de-invest in some and sort of invest in others that are really those growth and customers-focused sort of offerings that they have that are really SaaS versus those that are maybe not quite SaaS. I should also note that managed services is a place where we see a lot of SaaS companies that have, sometimes we call it fake SaaS. It looks like SaaS from a sort of how you might consume it, but under the hood, there's a lot of customization there and not necessarily operationally efficient. And so we do see that quite prevalent as well too. But I think an interesting way to look at sort of where you may land, and I think the measure of a slide often is if it's copied. So at some point this year, we got this slide back to us from a customer. They shared it with us, and we're like, that looks familiar. So it was a nice compliment, I think, in terms of what's there. But hopefully that gives you an indication of kind of the options that are available to you. You can imagine even more branches that we have as a part of this as well. So I want to transition now with this ideas around profitable growth and thinking about sort of the product strategy as it relates to AWS to thinking about how we may support you, right? And so I've been with AWS for about 8 years, and the partner network has grown dramatically. And we celebrated our 10th anniversary last year. And so when we first were launched, it was hundreds of partners. Now there's over 100,000 partners in 150 countries represented in that. and just a whole range of business models and use cases that are there. So it's just been tremendous growth. But I want to focus on a growing and profitable journey with AWS Partner Network. And then you'll see a lot more conversations and talk now about aligning our programs to achieve profitability goals for your business. That's really where we're focused. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. But fundamentally, the partner program is really built around these sort of common steps, if you will: build, market, sell, and grow, and across all sort of business models and partners. And so in that build phase for a SaaS provider, right, you're developing a new application. You're thinking about how it relates to those product strategies I just laid out, right? You're also building a business. Like, our team is really focused on business content and training and support that helps you think about building a SaaS business for the first time, right? What does that look like? How do I need to think about the sales team? Okay, what do I do here with customer success? What does a good functional customer success function look like? How do I think about pricing and packaging? That's our number one issue, by the way. We get a lot on our team is SaaS providers that are really struggling with that. You know, in this market state, you know, AWS has programs that help you market your solution to end customers, whether it be a new audience or even AWS customers that we have. And we also can help you sell, right? We've got programs and support, whether you're selling on your own or you've got a model where you're co-selling with AWS. We're putting a lot of investment in programs there. And finally, we want to think about how you're going to continue to grow on AWS. We've had now a number of SaaS companies, if you look at CrowdStrike or Snowflake and others that are, you know, sort of entirely sort of a SaaS business, they've continued to grow on AWS and be successful. Some at, like, you know, almost 10 years in on their journey with us, and they've really been built around AWS. And so that's kind of the really foundation of how we think about our programs. You just build, market, sell, and grow. I didn't chance to see Ruba's presentation. Did anybody see it? Did she talk about this a little bit, or not so much? I heard there's a lot of Gen AI, which makes sense. But this is really how we think about sort of the framework of our programs and what that looks like. So if I take it kind of one step further, last year we introduced something called the AWS Partner Profitability Framework. And so kind of taking this profit theme even further, the concern that many had was that they didn't really understand the ROI around the AWS Partner Network or what those programs and support meant. So if you're an organization and you're thinking about launching SaaS solutions or products, what benefit does the AWS Partner organization really bring me? And how do I demonstrate that from an ROI perspective, right, was really the challenge that we set out to take. And so we worked with a company called Canalys to develop a study, and they interviewed and surveyed a number of partners. Those were on AWS in various stages to really come up with this idea of this partner profitability framework. There's a lot of learnings in there. There's a whole study built around it that was released right about this time last year at re:Invent. But one of the things that they really saw was it was highly dependent on your business model. You know, are you reselling services? That certainly has a lower margin expectation than something that may be more in that technology solution or business outcome delivery. They also found that partners that really, we call it leaned in here, we'll hear that a lot, leaned into AWS and really engaged us very deeply and worked with our teams to be more successful and more profitable, right? So there's this business model thing that drove profitability. There's also this engagement piece that drove profitability as well. But overall, they found that if you're supporting or reselling $1 of AWS services, there's a multiplier kind of $6.40 or whatever currency you guys want to play in, about 6 to 1 for those that really were kind of at the top of this, had grown, launched solutions, figured out that sales alignment, were growing on AWS and really focused on technology solutions or business outcome delivery. So there's a study out there you can go deeper on, but this becomes a useful framework for us to think about how we continue to develop programs to support you, and hopefully profitable growth means something good to everyone here. I think I can get behind that. But you might ask kind of where does SaaS fit in? It kind of fits in the top here, right? And you know, it's certainly a technology solution or software solution, and managed services plays a little bit in there as well too. But the point I want to make around SaaS is that how you take advantage of the AWS Partner Network is highly dependent on a number of factors. And so whether it be product, you know, you think about sort of that eye chart slide that I shared earlier, where you're at in terms of, are you a SaaS solution that's on AWS, or customers running your solution on AWS in a different model, that's highly dependent on what we work with and what programs are relevant for you. What customers are you targeting? Are they aligned with teams that we have that are targeting certain sets of customers, be them industry or size or what have you? What use cases are out there? What resources do you have in-house, to really sort of go after this opportunity? Geographic location. AWS cloud skills. We have a number of companies that will come to us and say, hey, we're ready to build our SaaS solution on AWS. And we'll ask, well, how many people here are trained on AWS? What does that look like? And they'll answer almost zero. Well, how's that going to work out? I don't know. But, so in that situation, you've got to bring in additional resources or reskill or retrain people to be effective. But I'm going to sort of hand off to Merve here in a second. My point is that all these dimensions are dependent on how you may take advantage of our programs. And they're really things that our team tries to understand. Hopefully folks have seen interacting in our teams, we want to really work from the customer backwards and understand that use case and opportunity and build programs and support around that. So the next section, Merve is going to go deeper with some examples and really keep this build, market, sell, and grow framework kind of moving, but with some examples that our team has worked with and have come from other programs at AWS Partner Network. Merve?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Hi, everyone. So as Craig mentioned, I would like to kind of just look at each stage and what profitable growth means for SaaS companies at each stage. So again, just going back to this build, market, sell, and grow framework, profitable growth actually starts at the build phase because this is the time where you are building your business plans, your financial plans, while also developing your SaaS offering. So at this stage, just having that profitable growth mindset within the organization is quite important for that future expected growth when you start selling your solution. So it's really more about how do you prepare your organization and your platform, your SaaS offering for that next phase of your business. When it comes to market and sales stages, it's really more about launching your SaaS offering, how you get to market as quick and efficiently as possible. This is kind of the phase where you look at your product market fit and just really find the right customers you like to target. And at the growth phase, the profitable growth is really more about scaling your business, whether it is acquiring new customers or entering into new markets. So that's kind of the mindset we are looking for at that stage. Next, I'd like to look at each stage in more details and give you a couple of focus areas that you can think of to improve that profitable growth mindset. I will also share some real-life examples from the partners that have been through this journey on AWS. So let's start with the build phase. So as I said, the profitable growth starts as early as this phase, and based on more than 300 engagements that our team did with all these SaaS providers, we see that it usually takes between 12 to 18 months to launch a SaaS offering. So this time is usually a good time to, again, have that internal alignment, which starts with your executive team's alignment. So basically at this stage, we expect this alignment at the top level and having some strategies that is cascading down to other teams in the organization. And some guiding questions at this stage are, what are your financial benefits for building SaaS? What's the business case? What are the investments you are making? And at what point the financial benefits of your SaaS offering will offset the cost of your investments? So these are some of the guiding questions to take you to that profitable growth. The second pillar that you can look at the build stage is redefining your target audience, which could be very different than your current customers. Because in the SaaS world, it's really important to understand your end users in addition to your buyer personas. So many organizations, I think, skip this stage and they just jump into building a solution for probably their existing market. But it doesn't always work because, again, SaaS could help you get into new markets and you need to rethink about your customers. And this is the time that you should start thinking about it so that you can accelerate your product market fit. And the third pillar at this stage is really looking at your organizational skills. Because building, launching, operating a SaaS offering is very different than operating like a traditional on-prem software company. So at that point, you actually need to look at your organization, both on the development product side, but also on the sales and go-to-market side, and see if they have the capabilities to build this new SaaS offering. What we see here is that some organizations prefer to create this internal development of their existing talent, or building some COE internally to apply some of the learnings from the first SaaS product they created to other SaaS products they will create. Or other option is really there are so many different system integrator partners out there who has expertise in building and launching SaaS offerings. So we also see companies partner with these SI partners so that they can accelerate their time to market. I'd like to just share some examples for each stage, and I'd like to start with Yumi Studio. Yumi Studio is a partner that I had the privilege to directly work with. So they are basically based in Canada. And before COVID-19, they were providing in-person classroom experience for students, and they were just teaching how to code. But obviously with pandemic, everything stopped. They didn't have these in-person classes anymore, so they wanted to move to a virtual SaaS offering. But at that point, their founders realized that this actually hands-on, high-quality training is a use case that applies to a broader set of target audience, not just students. So at that point, we start working with them to really define their target audience and how to build their platform from day one for this new extended set of customers. So throughout that year, we work with them to build their platform, but we also work with them to help with how to package their offering for those enterprises, how to build their messaging go-to-market for this new set of customers. And when they launched their product a couple of years ago, now they are able to really target a market of more than 45 million professionals who really need this hands-on, virtual, high-quality training. Other example I like to share for the build phase is Medicine One. Medicine One is also a partner based in Portugal. So they basically have a clinical intelligence platform. So the healthcare providers basically use their platform to make some decisions about their patients based on some of the drug database and all other data sources. Medicine One wanted to actually expand their businesses globally. They wanted to acquire new customers in other regions. So that's why SaaS was a good model for them to move to so that they can scale their business. But they also realized they don't have internal resources to build this whole SaaS offering from scratch. So at that point, they approached AWS SaaS Factory, as well as Magic Beans, who is an AWS partner, to build this SaaS solution for their customers. The other thing they did was also just divide the development team into two different groups. The first group just focusing on the existing customers and existing solutions, but the second group just focusing on the new SaaS development. So with this new structure and working with AWS and Magic Beans, they were able to just launch their solutions 50% faster than they originally planned. So this was a great example of understanding the organizational skills and getting help when needed. Now I'd like to move to the next phase, which is kind of market and sell. I wanted to talk about them all together because this is the area, again, when you launch your SaaS offering. And one thing that SaaS enables many organizations is to explore new sales channels. Because with SaaS, now you have the ability to move from maybe an enterprise sales model to product-led growth or product-led sales model, or even explore some marketplaces, such as AWS Marketplace, to sell your offering. So I think at this point, it's important to assess all these different channels that might be new to you and really find the one that works the best for your customers, which will help you to lower the customer acquisition cost, which will hopefully impact that profitable growth we've been talking about. Other area at this market and sales stage is definitely the customer experience and onboarding experience. So when you start selling a SaaS offering, the actual journey starts when your customers decide to use your offering. But then after that point, you need to make sure they are happy, they are getting value out of your offering so that you can retain them. One key benchmark at this stage is really net revenue retention, which is basically the dollar amount or the whatever currency you are using, the amount that you keep and expand after all the churn from your customers. So for healthy SaaS organizations, we expect this to be more than 100%. And I think the recent benchmark for public SaaS companies is around 114%. So definitely a good key metric to keep an eye on. And finally, packaging and pricing. As Craig mentioned, this is one of the challenges of many SaaS organizations when they launch their solutions. But they also fall into a pitfall where they just have a pricing and packaging model when they launch, but they never go back and check for it or inspect. So one recent benchmark, again from AWS Partners, says that some of these SaaS organizations were able to increase their ARR by 27% just by changing their packaging and pricing models. And this doesn't necessarily mean like you just go and increase your prices and you have additional revenue. This is really more about looking at how your customers are using your product. Are there any opportunities to create new tiers, maybe for your smaller customers? Or are there any opportunities to monetize some of the functionality that may be a differentiator for your product? So at this stage, it's really quite important to review these packaging and pricing decisions and make sure they align with that profitable growth you are targeting. Just going to the examples, partner examples. So the first partner I'd like to talk about here is Rocket Lane. Rocket Lane provides a customer onboarding solution. So they basically work with SaaS providers. So they sell to SaaS organizations who are trying to onboard their customers on their offerings. So their platform simplifies this onboarding process as much as possible. So one decision they made after launching their SaaS offering was to sell their offering in Marketplace, AWS Marketplace. So this move actually allowed them to unlock larger deals than they were able to do on their own sales channels. So just by listing their solutions in AWS Marketplace, they were able to close the largest deal at that time for their organization, which was around 27% higher than their previous biggest deal. So they definitely explored this new channel, which unlocked new customer base for them. Other example we have here is RadioCloud, which might be, like in the specific media and entertainment industry. So they basically create automation platform for radio stations. So they streamline their content production operations. And there's a lot of legacy hardware involved in this process, like before using their solution. So they really wanted to move their customers from this legacy hardware or other bespoke solutions to their own SaaS platform. So at that point, they leverage AWS Workload Migration Program, which basically provides a technical best practices checklist for them to migrate their customers, along with some other funding benefits and go-to-market support. So when we have an interview with their CFO, they mention with this help from Workload Migration Program, now they can onboard their customers or migrate their customers to their new SaaS offering 50% faster than they were able to do before. So this is like a great example of being really very focused on the customer experience and making sure that migration is as frictionless as possible for them. Now let's move on to the next stage, which is the growth phase. And again, as I said, this is more about how you scale your business. Launching your SaaS offering, again, just the beginning of the journey. So at that point, many organizations really look at how we move from good to great. And one way to look at it is definitely looking at your cost structure and looking for ways to optimize the costs of your operations. In addition to that, there's this like whole SaaS operations now your organization is delivering. There are definitely some opportunities to even excel that operations that's coming with the SaaS model. So at this stage, our team developed a SaaS Lens, which is an extended version of AWS Well Architected Framework. So basically what SaaS Lens can help is you can, there's like a set of questions that you answer based on where you are with your SaaS offering. And it kind of assess your kind of current situation based on 4 or 5 criteria. And it kind of creates this some of the suggestions that may help you with this overall cost optimization and other improvements. So that's definitely an area that we suggest SaaS providers to look at, because again, at this growth stage, like every little shavings, every little saving that you do is impacting your profitable growth and also the overall valuation or the value of your business. The second pillar, I think, in this growth phase is really leveraging all these resources that are available to AWS partners through the whether different programs or marketplace or other resources. So one recent, again, this was, I think, shared in the partner keynote. We had a recent Forrester study where they interviewed with various partners who sell in AWS Marketplace. And these partners actually see 234% ROI in their investments and 50% faster time to value to close their deals. So there are definitely a lot of good benchmarks that will help you understand the value of all these different programs, but that's definitely something to discover in this growth phase. And the final pillar is really SaaS is more about opening new horizons for your business. This could mean acquiring new customers from different segments, from different geographies, or even transforming more and more products to SaaS models so that your organization could continue this the growth, profitable growth. Now I'd like to look at 2 more partner examples at this stage to share some of the success they had. So the first one is Lacework. So they are here, definitely they have a booth, go check them. They provide an infrastructure security platform to simplify the overall cloud security process. A couple of years ago, they started their partnership journey with AWS. So they joined AWS Partner Network, and they start quickly differentiating their businesses by earning competencies in security and containers. They listed their offering in AWS Marketplace as well. In the first month, they were able to close their first deal. And at the end of the year, they basically closed $3.95 million in AWS Marketplace, growing their businesses 3 times year over year for, I think, a couple of years continuously. So they definitely leverage all these different programs. They work with ISV Accelerate program to co-sell with AWS sellers. So they leverage all these different programs to support their accelerated growth. And they were able to basically receive one of the largest cybersecurity startup funding rounds in the history recently. And then my last partner story is from India, Landing Cart. So Landing Cart is a fintech organization, and they are operating in this fintech space. And if you look at that industry in India, it's probably very different than what we have in other countries due to kind of lack of that credit history structure. So one important thing in India was to support this micro, small, and medium enterprises that basically form the backbone of Indian economy. But they usually struggle with getting loans from these financial institutions because lack of their credit history. So what Landing Cart did was they built an intelligent platform that would collect all this data from various data resources to assess the creditworthiness of these small businesses. So since their inception in 2015, they distributed more than 1 billion loans to these small businesses. contributing to the overall economy. So their business was doing great. They were growing year over year, but they didn't stop there because they thought this platform could be packaged and made available to other banking and financial institutions in the country. So they again just start working with SaaS Factory team to build a SaaS version of this platform, and they launched their enterprise SaaS offering for these banks and financial institutions. So today, all these banks in India can quickly, just start using their SaaS platform, and within 2 weeks, they are able to start assessing all these small businesses for kind of lending some loans. So if you look at this kind of the change of business model and how they explored new horizons, they not only monetized their IP, what they built, but they also contributed this whole economy, all these like small businesses in India. So that was a great example of how SaaS helped them to get into new horizons. So with that, we will move into, so I talk about some AWS partner resources, some programs that are available. So in this part, I'll hand it over back to Craig just to dive deep into some of these programs, as well as share our latest digital experience that we launched just a couple of weeks ago.
Thanks, Merve. I was just struck when I was watching her presentation at kind of the range of partner examples. From lending cart example in India is really fascinating in terms of the economy and what they're driving there. Radio in the cloud, and so lots of cool examples. So I think we've demonstrated maybe that SaaS is really showing up as a use case broadly in all sorts of markets and areas. And so I want to take some time now and just kind of recap maybe a little bit. If you guys didn't have this build, market, sell, grow thing tattooed in your brain, we've done it in this presentation. So apologies for that. Maybe you can have a drink and forget about it in some way, at least for a little bit. But it is really how the partner organization is really framing programs going forward. So I think it's really important. So SaaS Factory is a program that we're both part of. I'm going to go a little deeper that on the next slide, but that was an example that was with a number of the partner examples that Merve shared. AWS Well-Architected Framework, if you didn't catch that, there's a well-architected framework that's available in the console that's completely self-service, and it allows you to sort of dive in various pillars, including a fairly new pillar around sustainability, right? And really understand sort of, are you making good choices, green choices, right? In terms of how you're building in AWS. And it goes further, right? So if you've used that tool, you have a number of remediation steps that you'll want to take, right? Based on this framework and guidance. It's like a series of questions that are asked. And partners can play an important role there and help you support that in that as well too. So it's more than just the tool or framework, but available in the console and completely free for anyone there that can access that. We talked a little bit about the competency, but the competency is really the way that partners can differentiate their business on AWS and be recognized for that. And there's competencies across the board in horizontal and vertical areas related to areas like security and DevOps and financial services and verticals, and a whole range of them are out there. So it becomes a way that really partners can understand how we validate that competency and how they can differentiate market. And then they get additional benefits, funding benefits, early access to some events and things as well too, and see a number of our top partners are really aligned around a competency as a part of that. AWS Marketplace was mentioned quite a bit. I understand too, it kind of took some headlines in Ruba's presentation in the partner keynote as well too, and there's some new new offerings for SaaS builders right on a marketplace. Mm-hmm. And you might find this surprising, but we don't know anything about these announcements until you do. So we don't have any advance notice, but I'm going to dive into that and try to understand. But I think ultimately we're making Marketplace even easier for you to build and launch your SaaS solutions on with some tooling that we provided. Let's get into this kind of grow phase a little bit. We talked a little bit about AWS ISV Accelerate program. That is really about aligning your sales team with our sellers, right? And making sure that they've got a really symbiotic way to work and a way that they're incented for selling your solutions. And so, and the ultimate benefit to you is really an increased sales cycle, really sort of improvement in that. And then I think we talked about the ISV workload migration program with some links, so I think people understand that. But really a program, again, for those that have built a SaaS solution and want to migrate that install base of on-premises customers to the SaaS offering and provide incentives and guidance around that. So I'm going to go a little deeper on SaaS Factory now. As I mentioned, we've been around for about 6 years, and certainly before that, we offered support to a number of SaaS companies, and a lot of them have grown up with AWS. But what we did about 6 years ago is kind of brought all that knowledge together in the partner network and built around it. And we now have a number of resources that we can bring to bear. And so an example really is this focus on knowledge and education. Being here and talking to you all and sharing best practices that we think you're going to learn from. Our technical teams presenting to re:Invent is a part of that. And so our team is really focused on knowledge sharing and education, and we have lots of ways you can consume that through content articles that we put out, to trainings and different events that we show up at. There's a Twitch series, right, on a regular basis, or even on television. So we're pretty public, right, from a program perspective, and a lot of good content out there. The next area that we're really focused on is really building solutions for you to take advantage of as a SaaS builder, SaaS provider. And so some examples here, including reference architectures. So we have reference architectures around EKS and serverless that are available on GitHub. You can go get those today, and your teams can use those immediately. We don't gate anything. Nothing's behind any sort of wall or anything like that. It's all available out there for you to consume today. And then finally, there's domain experts. There's people like Merve and I that are more business-oriented. There's a technical team out there. We also have folks globally that are supporting businesses. If you're from Asia Pacific region or Europe and you traveled here today, we've got teams there as well as support. But I think the biggest thing I want to talk about as it relates to kind of this domain expertise is sort of the competency partners that we've built out around the program. And so this is kind of the classic sort of logo slide here. But a few years ago, we launched with, I think, 24 or 5 partners, and now there's over 40 today. And I think the biggest change in the last year we saw is that we had a lot of partners that were very strong technically in building SaaS solutions and supporting those that are doing that. But if you look at the likes of Accenture, who just recently added to this list, and Capgemini, they also have business capability. They help you think about those challenges, whether it be the product packaging and pricing element, or thinking about SaaS operations and the business transformation that represents. And so there's really a wide range of partners, from Accenture to probably someone that's more like 30 or 40 people that support startups in certain geographies. And so we think we're well represented there now. So if you're also a system integrator or somebody that's in this business today, we'd love to talk to you about sort of adding you to this list as well. So let's get to our kind of launch here. So just a few weeks ago, we launched a web property called SaaS on AWS. And so our team has always produced a lot of content. We have over 200 assets that we've built just the last few years. So this ranges from blog articles to those reference architectures that I talked about earlier. But we didn't really have a good way to represent those in a digital format, right? And so they were out there. You had to search for them. The search doesn't work very well. And so we've really built now our content aligned around your phase, no matter where you're at. If you're in a design phase, your build phase, or launch phase, or you're in optimization phase, or you're migrating, right? There's now content appropriate for you. We also have this really aligned to sort of different roles, right? Whether a business role or technical role, or where you somewhere in the middle. And we're also adding additional components to this. There's a whole training element now that we're launching around this, and a lot more that will kind of launch through this platform next year. So I know not everyone can be at re:Invent, and so hopefully your teams at home, this provides a really good resource. I think it's really good for training and supporting kind of teams around that. And so we're going to look at a lot of different ways to help deliver that content for you, because that's really the way we scale as a team. And so please visit that if you want to kind of go to the URL quickly. It's right there for you. One thing I want to introduce that we launched this year was this Journey to SaaS guide. And Merve was a part of this as well too. But what we did basically is we took kind of key stages in this SaaS journey, and we added some kind of critical questions, almost business planning questions and problems around those, and then highlighted resources. So you can think about it a little bit deeper version of what we presented today as a useful resource. And it's on one page, and so it's kind of an easy format. But that's available today, and I think there's a blog that kind of supports it or talks about it as well too. So we thought that resource was relevant, one of the 200 we have out there. So I think I'm kind of in the recap now. So Some key takeaways from this session today. One, I talked about that profitability thing. I think everyone's focused there already, but hopefully that was some insight that was shared that was new to you in terms of the focus on that, not only from your perspective, but the market in terms of how it views it. When benchmarking your business around SaaS, think about sort of a range of factors. And I talked about kind of all this product and use case and sort of resources and sort of what that looks like in terms of how AWS programs land with that. And certainly not one size fits all. Merve talked about sort of key considerations at every phase of the journey, right? And really good insight, I think, from partners that have been successful and built around that. And finally, we talked about some resources there as well, too. So with that, I think we're going to end this session today. Please fill out the survey, and that helps us sort of make sure we're landing on the right content. I'm not sure we're going to have time for any questions, but Merve and I will be available out in the hallway. If somebody wants to grab us, please come find us. And we'd love to talk or answer questions out there. But really want to thank everyone for attending today. I know you got choices. We kind of followed somewhere between happy hour and dinner hour, and I really appreciate you being here. And please enjoy the rest of reInvent. Thanks, everyone.